Alright, yo, what's going on, all my gamers, all my Honkai Star Rail gamers? So, I just finished 3.1, so I figured while it's fresh in my mind, I might as well get on here and talk about it and tell you how I feel about the story. And man, I'm gonna tell you straight off the bat, this is quite possibly like one of the best story updates in a while. I don't know, chat, this story quite literally had everything. It had like every emotion you can think of. It even had fear, because there was a section that was just jump scares. It was kind of weird. I didn't like it. I'm not big fan of jump scares. You know me, Chad. I don't know. Hey, I'm a thug, but I'm not that much of a thug. So I'm gonna go through some positives and negatives and stuff like that, right? You know, the usual, chat. Let's just get into this. And my first thing is, I think this story flowed a lot better. Chat, one of my biggest fears when it comes to Honkai Star Rail, and especially when we get to the second story, which, you know, when we think back to Penacony, I think 2.1 really, I don't know. I feel like it lost a lot of people. It lost a lot of steam. And it just got into Adventurine stories so much where I don't know. I just didn't really care. I didn't even get Adventurine because of that story. That story kind of upset me, and it's just like, man, I don't care about this kid. Whatever. But this story, it definitely is a good start, you know, not a good start, but like a good continuation. So I think the story in this one flowed a lot better. You know, everything was just moving along in a way where, you know, it felt to me that 7 hours just passed by. And one thing that I do want to note that I really liked, I don't know how anyone else feels about this, is that there's still no insane or confusing terms that you would only get in like simulated universe and stuff like that. A lot of what they talk about has already been introduced into this story, and so it's not anything. They're not throwing any curveballs. You know, they might reference some things here and there, but so far I really like how there's just not, like, the dialogue isn't over edgy and anything like that. Like, this dialogue and everything is very, very solid in this. Now, the part that I really, really like is these characters, bro. And man, this is gonna really suck if they don't fix Castris, because, bro, I want Castris so bad, because these characters, I'm telling you, are probably one of the best written characters in Honkai Star Rail. I love them, bro. Like, Castris, it was kind of cool seeing her fight. You don't really get to see her fight a lot, and there's some scenes in here where you really fight with, you know, you see Castris fight. She has like some poison, like, I don't know, goop thing that comes out of her hand. That's really cool. We had a new character being introduced, which is Anaxa. Anaxa is an asshole, which, hey, it's kind of funny, to be honest. I really like him. I think he's a dickhead, but I think he's really funny. But next, they have a whole section that I really, really liked, which was My Day. My Day had his own section where he ascended to godhood, and he was you know, he went in, he did his ascension quest thing. I know it sounds kind of weird, but, you know, when they ascend to their demigod state, they have to take the core flame, and they have to go do their trial. My Day in this story, I think he really shined. He really made the first half so much more enjoyable, and he's just such a sick character. I don't know what to tell you, Chad. He's super cool, and when he comes in after being ascended, spoiler alert if you haven't played it, but yeah, he becomes a demigod. He just has so much, like, charisma, and he demands so much attention, and he's such a badass. And when he returns and sits on his throne, I think that is such a good, I don't know if he's coming back later. It's supposed to be the end of his story, but for right now, if that is his conclusion, I think it is a pretty good conclusion. You know, I really liked it, right? And next, the second half of the story really revolves around Triby, Trian, and Trinan, and Tribios, which Tribios is Triby's like original state. And a lot of this is where you'll get a lot of the emotional depth, as well as some of the jump scare scenes. I mean, the jump scare scenes are from this one. It's kind of wild. I didn't like it, dude. It's Five Nights at Honkai Star Rail. It's Five Nights at Furious, I didn't like it. I was like, oh god, I kept jumping, but you know, this part was definitely the more emotionally charged part, especially towards the end. Where hey, spoiler alert, because this is gonna be one of the positives. I might as well throw it in here. We did lose a major character. You know, Trian actually sacrificed herself by using the Infinity Gate, the Sentry Gate. The Sentry Gate takes time off of her life where she will be reverted, and so when Trian had to use it against the Abyss Knight, or what is it? I forgot what it's called. The Black Tide Knight. She eventually sacrifices herself, and she has to be turned back into a little doll, and that is where Trian is at the story right now. So it had a lot more emotional impact, and I'm glad that they actually went with this where they killed off, quote unquote, killed off. I'm not entirely sure if she's going to remain like that, but, you know, this is where we actually get to feel the stakes of what's happening, and I really like that, chat. I really wish that they were doing this a little bit more, and I will come into a negative later on when we talk about that, but so far, pretty good. I really liked it. It's also, I think this one also had some pretty interesting fights. I think that a lot of the fights were a lot more creative, especially once you get Tribby fighting in there. You know, they're not just throwing punches. I mean, they are, you know, with My Days in there. Yeah, he's throwing punches and stuff like that. But, like, when Tribby fights in these scenes, it's pretty interesting. You know, it has to do with her utilizing the Sentry Gates and stuff like that. And then Anaxa has a plan, which you get to see unfold in one of the cutscenes. And I think that part is really cool. You know, they're getting kind of creative with these fighting. You know, it's not just me throwing out attacks and then you getting hit. You know, I thought it was pretty sick. That, or at least I did. I don't know how everyone else felt about these cutscenes. Me personally, I really like these cutscenes. So another thing I really want to talk about, you know, when we get into the map and we get into, you know, where you have to get around and walk around, right? I wanted to say that a lot of the walking around was cut down, and there were not as many annoying puzzles as there were in 3.0. I think 3.0 was filled with puzzles and things that you had to do. When I was in this, going through 3.1, the longest thing that I had to go through was probably the little Pong mini game, and it wasn't because it was hard. It's mostly just because you have to wait for it to turn around, and even that was really short. So that kind of tells you just how little, things that were really in your way when it comes to running around. So when you run around, you just pretty much run around, right? And I can't really think about fights that you really had to take, right? A lot of these fights are just kind of there if you want to do them. If you don't want to do them, you can kind of just run past. The only ones I ever felt like I had to do was when you were running with Trebios and you were helping her get out of her place, wherever she was at. You know, I didn't fight because I had to. I fought just because I really wanted to, you know. The camera scenes, I feel like the camera felt a little bit more dynamic, but I could be wrong about that. Let me know how you feel about that. You know, there's not a lot of black screens, stuff like that. So a lot of the camera work felt like it improved in my opinion. But, you know, you guys had to tell me how you guys feel about that. I really want to know how you feel. And now we can get into the negatives, chat, with Honkai Star Rail, with me saying that this is a 7-hour story. Of course, it is slow to start, chat. I cannot emphasize this enough. It is slow to start, and there are some parts where the dialogue is just going on and on and on. So, although that is a very bad thing, I do have to say that I felt like it still paid off in the end. Like, going through this, even though it was pretty dialogue heavy, I still felt like I never felt like my time was wasted. When I get to the end, when I get through the story, when I hit the end, when it tells me that the Trailblazer story continues in the next patch, I felt like I had a good time. But I still have to put it in as a negative. A lot of dialogue, slow to start. Another thing I want to talk about, I talked about this in the beginning a little bit, but I still need to throw the other half of this scene in there where Trian was killed off, right? But Krataros, who was the one who saved and picked up her corpse and brought it back to Trian and saved her, it describes him as being cut up to like from head to toe and like being on the brink of death. He was not killed off, unfortunately. It's hard to say. It's weird to say, unfortunately, but in my opinion, I felt like he should have been killed off. There was a very, very emotional scene. It got to me. I cried at it. I'm sorry, Chad. I did, but I don't know. I felt like I was still emotional even after he survived. I just felt like if he had, paid the ultimate sacrifice, it would have been sick. I would have loved that character a lot more. For Krataros, from being some guy who took Trian hostage to being the one to sacrifice himself for her. I just felt like it had to end that way. But again, they didn't do it. I don't even know why. He wasn't even a character that we're going to play. He's an NPC. I mean, they kind of have, it is what it is. Now, I want to talk about the interior of the world. I did say that when you go off exploring, it is a lot less, how do I say it? It is a lot less dense with puzzles and stuff like that, but it is not really that different from the other times. It is still in the same way. In fact, you might even say these are kind of copy pasted and stuff like that. So if you didn't really like that, you're gonna have to do it like 3 or 4 times. I don't know what to tell you. Now, the only difference will be when you get to the grove, because it is a big tree, it's gonna be different. I don't know. In my opinion, I felt like there could have been a little bit more, some more creativity in there. The only thing that was different was the Pong puzzle. Even then, it was like for one section. It is what it is, I guess. And I guess the last complaint, because I have to nitpick because I can't really find a lot of things that I disliked about this story. But, the Trailblazer, you're not even there. Why are you even there? Daniel's not even there for half the time. And he's still with you for some reason. I don't know. Don Hung's not there. You're barely there. You're just more there as yourself to just watch these people talk and get through the things. It would be cool if the Trailblazer had even more of a bigger role, but you kind of have to just watch at this point because everyone else is doing their crisis, their Cryos air, stuff like that, their core flame ascension and things like that. And you're just kind of there waiting. I think Mem probably has more of an impact than you do. So, if you want to count that as yourself, it is what it is. For me, man, I kind of have to knock off points because of how dialogue bloated it is. But even with the dialogue bloat, I'm probably giving this like an 8, like a very solid 8. This is such one of the best updates for Honkai Star Rails, which is good because 3.0 was kind of a miss for a lot of people, especially because it is a 10-hour story. This one, I feel like if you play this one, you're going to be pleasantly surprised. I definitely recommend to play through it. It is definitely worth the 7-hour trip. Me, I had to play it over 3 days because I'm having some GPU issues, overheating issues. So, stream had to lag a bit, so I had to cut it off. But, when I did stream it, it was a good time. I had fun. I was just watching it, and I was so intent, and I was locked in. Chat, let me know how you feel about 3.1. I feel like I'm on the money here. Let me know how you feel. Comment, like, subscribe, and I will catch you gamers in the next one. Bye.